Welcome to the Year of the Bible. I intend to provide short video helps every week of our journey through the Bible, figuring each week is beginning with Monday. This week I want to give you some suggestions for getting started and talk about the readings for the first 3 days of January. Now you may ask, what version of the Bible should I read? The designer of the program, Pastor Davison, has some thoughts about that in his opening notes to the reader. If you want a fairly literal translation that follows in the tradition of the King James Version, then I suggest the New Revised Standard Version. That's the one that's in our sanctuary and that we use most often in Sunday worship. If you want a fairly accurate but simpler translation, then I like the Good News Bible. It's faithful to the original languages, but quite easy to read. But the poetry isn't quite as beautiful. Now, we have copies of both those two translations on the table in the Welcome Center if you want to get one from the church. Two other good versions are the New International Version, especially the most recent revision, for a fairly literal translation, and for a readable paraphrase that doesn't stray too far from the original, try the Message. Pastor Davison has some good suggestions on how to manage the reading and what to do if you get behind. I want to add two more thoughts. If you read something and you want to think more about it, but you don't have time just then, well, read what you can and then plan to think about it while you're doing something else, like driving or doing the dishes or taking a walk. Turn off the car radio or don't take along your podcast and think about what you read. The other thought is to use our Facebook Family and Friends page as a good place to ask questions or share insights. If you want to ask me a question, put it there so others may see my response. Or if you call or email me directly, I may want to put my response there because if you have a question, you can bet several others have the same question. One more general suggestion before I say something about this week's reading. Every month, Pastor Davison has an introductory article about the month's readings and a follow-up called In the Spotlight. Read those whenever you have a chance. They're very helpful in where to focus as you read the Bible. Now, what are we reading in the Old Testament this week? The first 6 chapters of Genesis provide a look at what is sometimes called the Bible's prehistory. This is the framework for Israel's origin story, which we'll get into next week. I did way too much research into Genesis 1 to 3 in my PhD studies, so I don't want to get into that lest I bore you. I do want to say that I do not believe that the Holy Spirit intends for us to take it as an exploration into why there are bad things in the world, so much as an exploration of what human life in the world is really like. So, here are some things to notice. Consider the behavior of Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel, and Lamech, both positive and negative. Do these stories show us something about the way people actually behave? Do their relationships with each other look familiar? The last chapter that we read this week is the beginning of the story of Noah, and the book says that Noah, quote, found favor in the sight of the Lord. Do you see any indication in the story of why Noah found favor? I know what you were taught in Sunday school, but what does the story actually say? Sometimes the questions we ask about the Bible don't really have answers. Sometimes the questions are intended to get us to think a little more deeply. If you have time and energy to think a little more deeply, then do. If that's more than you can manage, then please simply read and enjoy the stories. Sunday's New Testament reading is Matthew 3, so we'll read it in worship, and I will preach on that chapter. Happy reading!